Basically, I knew Dean Chris first and shot the Roadster pickup and everything, and then I started hearing the story. But the moment I saw the photo of you and your friend working on the pickup, you know, back when you first got it, I just knew that sparked my interest. Like, this has to be documented because that picture is priceless.
That's my brother.
That's your brother?
Yeah, he was the other half of that car.
So I think, yeah, you know, again, like I said, I want to know everything. So let's start from how this whole truck fell into your lap and just tell us the story. And I think, like I said, then Dean and Chris, you can kind of pick up once it starts to get to that transition where, you know, you get rid of it and how, you know, how it ended up in you. So yeah, just go ahead and tell us how the Roadster pickup landed in your lap and how everything happened.
Well, it's kind of a long story. My dad was a doctor, and everybody called him Dr. Pad, but he liked to work on old cars, especially Model A's. And in college, he had a Model A's. So after we got settled in the mid-50s, he bought a Model A sedan. And we worked on it in the driveway, me, my brother, and him. And we never got it street legal. We just drove it up down the driveway. But then he found a Model A Roadster, 1930 Roadster. That was about 1956. Which had 23,000 original miles on it, so we just basically put a paint job on it. We took it on the first tour to Mineral Wells. I think that was probably 1956. Anyway, we were driving up there and there was a big clunk, so we stopped and had thrown one blade off the original two-blade fan, so he knew all about that, so he just took the other one and bent it and broke it off, and then we just drove to the next town and stopped at Western Auto, and they were still selling Model A parts, and bought them a fan and water pump. And so anyway, didn't have any more trouble with it that trip, but he always drove his cars to the shows, you know, that's before anybody trailered them, and people now are afraid to drive them. But back then, they were still on the regular cars on the road. They were basically used cars. So one time we were in South Carolina, where my mother was from, and we drive around looking for Model A's, and saw this 32 Ford touring car going down the road, and so we went after it and started talking to the owner and ended up buying it. We drove it home, didn't have any trouble with it, and that was a car that he liked to take on tours. There's a funny story coming home. It didn't have a top on it, so he was pretty sunburned. And by the time we got home 3 days later, we were on 410, and some of the car club guys saw him. They said, "Hey, let's go chase that Mexican down. That's at 32, see if we can buy it." Because he was turned real dark. He didn't say, so. Anyway, they got a good laugh out of that. Anyhow, so that car is still in San Antonio somewhere, being re-restored.
It's a great picture of that car too, with you and your family in it.
Yeah, it was taken, you know, ended up in the paper, the newspaper. But anyway, he had some friends at Fox Alignment, and me and my brother were over there one day digging around in the junk cars in the back and saw this Model A frame, which turned out to be their old race car, and it still had an engine in it but no body, and had a 32 Ford grill on it. So we bought it for $15 and took it home, and we were both still in high school.
You said $15?
$15 for
That's a pretty good price.
You paid too much.
You paid too much.
It had a Winfield carburetor on it too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, those are real rare.
Where'd that go? I haven't seen that.
I think my brother still has that. And, so anyway, we got it running in the driveway. It's kind of neat. The drive shaft had been shortened. We had a Z frame on it. And 35 radius rods in the front, so that got a real low in the front, and it had a stock B motor on it at the time, and supposedly it had an overhead conversion in it originally that ended up with somebody in the club. That's what my dad told me anyway. But they had chopped the flywheel on that down to about 20 pounds, so we didn't have a ring gear anymore, so you had to hand crank it. But we got the motor running, and it sounded real good. And we even took it out and test drove it somewhere, I don't remember, but So my dad didn't like hot rods too much, so he said, well, no, you can't put that thing on the street, but I'll help you build a Model A's. So a friend of mine, a friend of my dad, had an old sedan. We got the frame and gas tank off of that, and front end, and we later sold all the hot rod parts off of it. We used the rear end, the transmission, the engine, the radiator, the steering, brakes, and stuff like that on the new frame. And then we found a roadster pickup body without doors in Pleasanton, and my dad's friend just started giving me parts we needed to put it together. Somebody gave me a pickup bed, and somebody gave me the top, and we had already had a Model T pickup bed, so we had to use the tailgate off of it. And anyway, after scrounging a lot of parts, we finally got it going. It took a while to get it running street legal. It was probably about 1964 before I got it where it was on the street. Mm-hmm. And it had the same B motor, but I found a aluminum head and a Mallory distributor for it, and a downdraft 94 carburetor. And it ran pretty good. I drove it quite a bit. We went to a show in Dallas, went to Galveston one time, went to Lubbock when I was in school up there, had it up there. And I took it to a run up there, old car tour, and they had a cranking contest. I didn't get a crank the first crank the second crank, but I beat them all at the finish line, so I still won. Flywheel, chopped about 20 pounds off of it, made it pretty peppy.
Yeah. You had that high-speed rear end too, right?
Yeah, 327 gears in the race car.
There's a few trophies in that room now that you gave to Dean and Chris. Can you talk about, like, how did you get those? And
well, the one was when we went to Dallas. It was a national meet, and me and my brother and his girlfriend, or might have been married then, drove up there in it and put us in the modified class. I think we got 4th place. Mm-hmm. And we wanted to leave Saturday, but they wouldn't let us out because they had the show open to the public, so we just snuck out. It was in the big convention center there somewhere.
So they even did that back then, where if you're in the show, you're in the show until it's officially done.
They said, hey, we're out of here. So somebody just opened the door and got in and started and drove out. Jumped in and took off. What are they going to do, arrest me or something? But anyway, we had things to do. So I drove that car, well, during the summer, I drive it to work, and when I went off to college in Lubbock, I left it in San Antonio. In the meantime, my brother, when he got out, about 3 years ahead of me, he joined the Army, and he went to Fort Hood, and some guy up there had a 40, had to get rid of a 40 Ford Coupe. So we drug that home, and we worked on that one together and got it running with a Cadillac motor.
Was that red or maroon one?
Yeah, that's the one that's in the photograph. And then he went to school in Lubbock, and he had it up there, and he was working part-time in the machine shop and souped up the motor, ended up with a 390 with 3.2s in it, and it ran real good until he blew the flywheel, blew the clutch plate up and cut the frame in half and almost took his foot out, but he never got it running after that. He sold it to somebody. We always, me and him, work on a project and then we'll get rid of it and then work on another project. And when I got married, I still had the Roadster pickup, but I had 2 kids. We wouldn't fit in it. And when I was in dental school, I had built a 54 Studebaker, and so we had that to drive in. So I sold the pickups to Chris's dad because he always liked it and wanted it.
When did you first see it, Chris?
So first time I saw the car, I mean, to tell you the truth, like I don't even have a memory of seeing the car the first time because I grew up around that group. So my dad was president of the Model A Club, I think in like 68 or 69, somewhere around there. So it was just always around. So I remember seeing the truck around. I remember
Yeah.
always absolutely loving that truck. And
We
I don't
took
think,
it on a lot of tours.
yeah, I think later on you kind of stopped going to a lot of the Model A Club tours. So
But, I went back to school
Yeah.
in '73, so I wasn't around.
yeah,
You go to school in Tech, or you said Lubbock, or is it Texas
Texas Tech.
Okay.
Went there 3 years.
my dad was always more. He was very interested in the restored cars, and he had this. Oh, so it's kind of like he had this like almost like secret interest in hot rods. But like that group, you were kind of a rebel in the group because most of those guys, they were like, if it's not, there was a couple of guys there where if your car wasn't restored and it was a hot rod, they'd almost kind of like shun you a little bit. But Dad always loved this truck. And I remember one day I got home from school. I can't remember what year it was. I'm thinking I was probably 12, somewhere around his age. And I remember my dad said, "Oh, we're going to go look at John's truck," and I was like just ridiculously excited, like I couldn't even contain myself. So my mom kept saying, "Oh, we don't know that we're getting it," and like just the thought.
So you didn't get your hopes up?
Yeah, but even just the thought of having that car in the family, and at that point, I don't think I had the appreciation of the history, but I certainly loved the truck. So anyway, I remember we drove out to your house where you still live now, which was really cool for me when I drove out when Dean and I took the truck out there.
What town is what town do you live
I
in?
live in Castroville now.
Yeah, Castroville, which is about 45 minutes away. But so anyway, I remember I was sitting in the back of the truck when we went on the first test drive, and you pulled out of your driveway, and I think you went around that first left corner, and you popped the clutch, and I went like sliding back to the tailgate, and I was in heaven. It was like most of the Model A's, put them in gear, let the clutch up, and it works its way up. And this thing is like moving instantly. So I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the coolest thing ever. Like I absolutely like love this truck. So remember, Dad worked a deal out with you, and he had a 28 Phaeton at the time. He had a 29 Sport Coupe at the time, and actually, both of those cars are much better to carry a family around in. But I remember he put bass boat seats in the back, so there was two 2x4s with bass boat seats that were just laying on the 2x4. They weren't bolted down or anything. I think the bass seats are probably still in Dad's garage, but. I think about that now. It's like, I can't imagine like putting the kid in the back of the car with bass boat seats. It's just not gonna
Times are different.
Yeah, well, that's how it is, right? Even at my age, I'm only 29 right now, but I remember doing stuff when I was a kid going, that wasn't probably the best idea, but at the time, like, oh, this is good. This is bulletproof idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody rode around the back of pickup trucks back then.
Yeah.
Not a big deal.
Yeah. So like from the time I was probably 12 until the time I was 16 or 17, we spent a lot of weekends and going on cruises and stuff in the truck. So that's kind of my memory of the truck. So I love the history kind of that we've learned from you of the truck, and then I love that my dad had that truck, and I know how much that truck meant to him. Because like you're saying, like before he owned that truck, he would always he'd tell me about that truck, he'd tell other people about that truck. He's like, yeah, people would be talking about, I saw this Model A that had this speed equipment. He'd always go back to, talking about the Roadster pickup. So even before he had the opportunity to own it, he just, absolutely loved that truck. So
that's
to
great.
me, it's pretty.
I knew he liked
pretty
it. That's
special.
why I gave him first dibs, and I didn't know he liked it that much. I was really
No,
surprised.
he was.
Look at him.
Yeah. Well, he also kind of. Maybe he didn't share that with you, but no, he absolutely loved it. And I remember when we got, I don't know if you know this, but when we got home that evening, I don't know if you guys had made the deal that day or the next day, but my dad was like, he said that he was worried your dad was going to talk you out of it selling it.
He tried to. Don't say that.
That was the truth. So it did happen.
Yeah.
He's like, I need to buy it quick, or Dr. Pat's going to talk about it, try to sell it.
And how does that make you feel to know that this is still on the road today, and you've seen the generations it's going to pass through Chris, then it's going to go to Dean, and then hopefully Dean to his kids? Like, how does that make you feel?
That makes me feel really good. I was really surprised that they're really into it that much, because it was just a car that was fun and something I just like to build and drive around in. But I'm glad the tradition's being carried on.
Am I right when I say most of the time I catch up with anybody when they were building it and using it at the time and driving it, no one really thought of the legacy their present car was going to continue on to have, because you're just in the moment, right? Because that, that's not old school traditional stuff to you guys, because that's what you guys are doing normally. That's just your life.
That's what
and now, in this era, now it's 2018, we categorize all these traditional or this or that, and then your pickup fits a certain category, and that category is liked by different generations. You know what I mean? Would you ever believe that this pickup would still be on the road today and appreciated by different generations for years to come?
No, I didn't really ever think that. Back then, only us younger people appreciated it, because the older guys didn't like hot rods. And it wasn't really a hot rod, it was just a modified Model A, basically. But everybody, back when me and my brother were in high school, everybody just about seemed like had an old car they liked to work on, and there were a lot of Model A's and 32s and 40s, and there was this one girl who drove her 39 two-door convertible around, which we thought was really cool, and her dad built it for her, and there were just a lot of cool cars. We went to school in Jefferson, there were just a lot of cool cars there.
Yeah, and like I said too, when I brought up in the beginning, there was something about that photo of you and your brother. We see a lot of cool things online about, like, Life magazine. They look at this historical photo, but there's something about that photo that it may be different because it's a photo of you and your life. But do you understand how, like, almost priceless that moment is? Because even if we shot that with Dean and Chris, or even if Dean had a brother, and that's 2000, let's say 18 or whatever it is, but the fact that a lot of people didn't take the photos that we do today, because we have camera phones and we have all these things that almost any device you have has a camera on it. Then it's almost, you have to organize it, or you have to actually have money to actually have a camera and to take that photo, working on this pickup that still exists today. There's like a lot of butterfly effect that has to happen to get that photo. So I almost have to say I appreciate that. Who took the photo, actually?
I don't know. My brother took all the other photos. We had a little brownie, and he liked to take photos, and he still does. But maybe my mother took it, or somebody, sister. Yeah,
as soon as I saw that, I'm like, that picture is just priceless to me. It's perfect.
I was the same way. I called John and said, "Hey, can we bring the Roadster pickup over and because I wanted Dean to meet John." And then when he pulled that picture out, I was like speechless. I just love that picture.
And then Dean's like, get some breakdown from you. To me, you're way ahead of your age when it comes to knowing about the history of, like, hot rods and customs, especially now that you been photographing cars as well. I wouldn't say it's pressure, but do you understand now you may be sitting where I am, like what you're doing today, that, I might be doing this exact thing in 10 years to come?
Yeah. I feel like I'll always be doing stuff like this because I just love it, and I want the history to be passed on to a lot of stuff, and people should know, like, the history of this car in white means so much. You don't just, like, go online and say, "Hey, this is my car." That's just, like, you want to know more about it, and, like, how it started. Maybe not just, like, what engine it has, how it started, who built it first, and
like, where did you find the motor and stuff like that. And we'll definitely get into that on this pickup, but so the viewers can learn more about you. How many kids in your school really know a lot about hot rods?
0.
Just you?
Yeah.
Just you?
Sure of that.
Yeah, what?
My friend.
3 friends on Earth that are your age?
Yeah.
They do that?
Big boots to fill there.
They're always talking about their whips and their Corvettes and their...
And you're talking about the Roadster pickup.
Yeah. I'm like, I have a 29 Roadster. They're like, what's that?
What is that, right?
1929. I bet they're like, do they even have cars back then?
Yeah,
their knowledge is not.
I get that. It's like,
Does it run off of like steam or coal or something? Yeah. Well, when you turned 16, what do you plan on driving to high school, you think?
64 Falcon, or maybe 41 to 48 Ford, custom 50 style. I think that was just so cool. And
And I'm pretty sure if these cars are still around with you guys, at least if the pickup, that you might take this once or twice to school.
Yeah,
right?
I'll take it more than once and twice.
We've talked about that. We'll work something out.
Yeah.
Maybe like once a week.
Yeah, you don't really have bad choices of what you're imaginary plus what you already have now. But actually, let's start breaking down the pickup. And where did you find all the speed equipment? Was it from a store, from a friend? Kind of jump into that for us.
Okay, well, you can still buy Model A parts from Western Auto and J.C. Whitney. So I bought the original downdraft intake from J.C. Whitney. The rest of the parts we just scrounged up. The aluminum cylinder head and Mallory distributor I found at a swap meet. I don't even remember where. It might have been the original Pate, because I just had the stock head on it. And all the other parts were original Model A parts. Either the ones that we took off the race car or ones that we scrounged up. Like my father found a set of fenders for $20 that some guy had and took off a car, and somebody gave me the pickup bed. Some parts I got out of a junkyard and came off a Model A banana wagon that nobody wanted because they wanted $40 for it, so it ended up in a junkyard.
What do you see anything? What's been changed, you think, so far? Did you have to change anything, or did anything wear out that you just absolutely had to replace?
So my dad ended up putting a different, and honestly I don't know why he ended up doing this, but he had bought, and I actually just learned this very recently.
I sold an extra engine.
He bought a B block from John, and then so he had that newer B block in it with the, I think it was a Winfield head that was on there, with the Winfield head, and then probably about 10 years ago he wanted to put an overhead Riley on it. If I understand right, I think he talked to you about doing that.
At a swap meet.
Before he did that. Yeah. So Dad was always he wanted to make sure that he kind of respected John's wishes with the truck. So he talked to John and said, hey, I'm thinking about putting this overhead Riley on it. That's about the only changes that have been made. He did put turn signals on it, which I think I'll actually end up probably taking off. I can't stand them. That's the only thing I don't like about the truck.
They look like trailer turn signals.
Yeah.
So like I said, the truck had been in the family for a long time, and my dad always knew that this truck was like sort of like my connection to getting into hot rods. So it was like Dad was into not traditional. Dad was into restored cars. He bought this. I had always wanted to have a hot rod. So to me, this was just absolutely amazing. So Dad knew that the truck meant a lot to me. So I got a call. Dad he had been sick a few times. He'd gotten cancer, beat it. Gotten cancer, beat it. The third time that he got cancer, he called me one day and he goes, hey, it's time for me to pass the truck down. So he's like, bring Dean with you. So I said, okay, that's I'll bring him along. So I'm sitting there thinking, okay, this is like a moment that I knew would happen at some point, but I didn't know when, had no idea. And so I thought I drove over there thinking, okay, well, I'll have the Roadster pickup and then I can give it to Dean. So we roll up the garage door, go in there, and my dad hands Dean the keys, and he goes, well, it's yours now. And Dean's like, almost.
I was so excited.
He's like in tears, and I'm like, I can't say that. I will not say I was disappointed. I will say I was
because it skipped you.
I don't own this truck.
You're grounded, Dean. Why? Because
yeah. I don't own the truck. I've never owned the truck, which is just kind of funny to me.
So you're like, I don't even need to be here right now at this interview.
Exactly. I have actually no value to this conversation at all whatsoever.
Dean lets you drive it.
Yeah, Dean lets you drive it. That's what. Yeah.
So basically, so you were, I think, 10 at the time.
Yeah.
And like, there's very few things that make me more proud than the fact that, at 10 he's got his grandfather's roadster pickup that came from John, and the thing that I think is just really cool. It's not the fact that he has the truck. It's the fact that he gets it. He understands the value of that truck. Not monetary, but from like a historical perspective and a tradition perspective.
Yeah, and I think too, because like we're talking earlier about your school, because if you had a fraction, like one out of how many would actually understand and appreciate this vehicle, and Dean is probably that one on top of that fraction.
I think so. I think he is. That's what my dad always said. He never told me this, but he told my mom several times. He passed away about a year and a half ago, and he said several times that was one of the things he appreciated most about the sort of the end of his life was the fact that he could share this truck with Dean, and that Dean loved it. And could have been any other one out of the million kids, or it's like, oh, here's a truck. Okay, great, it's a truck. My grandpa gave me some old truck. But I don't know anything about it. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty cool because he was saying earlier that when he rode in the back of the truck, he just slammed back into the bed and loved it. I've had the same feeling, but I was sitting in the front because we were only 2 people then, and that car, when you're going 20, it feels like you're going 100 miles per hour.
Yeah.
It's got a crazy amount of torque. It's just so fun.
Especially for the make and model and stuff.
Yeah.
Because you're used to, if you had a stalker. Right. Yeah, if you had a stalker, you'd be like, you can get out of the car and go do something and get back in before he takes off.
I need to tell you about why I had the extra motor. The original motor had gotten water in it and froze and cracked the block. And there was an old man in the club, Mr. Barth. You remember Mr. Barth?
I do.
Anyway, he worked on Model Ts and Model A's out of his house, and he could fix anything. So he brazed up the block, and then we put it in coals and let it cool down slowly, and it had a couple of little cracks around where he brazed it, but we epoxied those up and it didn't leak any. So that's why I had the extra block. But the original block needed boring, so I didn't have money to take it to the machine shop. He said, "I got a boring bar," so we pulled the boring bar out. It was a hand boring bar.
Oh my gosh!
So we bored the original motor with.
Spent the week boring it out.
Well, no, it took about 4 days. Me and a friend of mine, you just take it and walk around in circles around while it was sitting on the ground. But it worked good. Bored it out, put new pistons in it, and put it back together.
So that was that block that was in it when,
right, that's the original motor, right?
Okay.
And it had the aluminum head and had a B cam in it, which was a little peppier.
Yeah.
So that's the story of the original motor.
Those Winfield heads are hard to find. There's a lot of copies of them out there. And I can't remember, there's like one specific mark that only the original Winfield had, and I know obviously that one was an original.
That's an original because I bought it probably in the early 60s. But the original motor, they had offset ground the crank, and it was actually stroked 1/8 of an inch. Mm-hmm. And so when I put the head on, the pistons were hitting the head, so I had to take it to the machine shop and machine out the chambers a little bit to give us some clearance because it would just cut completely flat.
Yeah, that would explain all the torque.
Yeah, well, give it a little more torque.
Do you feel, now that it's in Dean's hand, do you feel almost like complete on your part to know like you did your part when it comes to this pickup, and now like Dean is going to kind of carry on for you, or is there anything in the past you wish you could have done with the pickup? You like taken to a certain show, or modified a certain way, or do you think you feel complete now?
Well, I did the best I could back then, so I'm happy he likes the way it is now. If he wants to change it and make it better, that's okay.
No.
He don't want to change it at all.
We talk about that a lot. So like, I think we both agree that, and my dad had said the same thing, we don't ever want to change it. And I wonder, is it ever going to come to a point, it won't be in my lifetime, but I wonder like in his lifetime, will he ever have to tear this thing down and restore it? Have you ever thought about that?
Maybe in 1929 when it's 100 years old, like a 100-year anniversary remodel.
Well, the only thing that actually would deteriorate on it would be the Bondo, and people say Bondo doesn't last, but it's still on there.
Yeah, I didn't even know there was any Bondo on it.
And quite a bit on the doors. The doors actually came off another hot rod body, and somebody welded up the door handles, and so it's got Bondo over that, but it's still on there.
Who did the
I
striping?
think Bondo is forever if you keep it out of the weather.
Who did was the striping when you got the body, or did you put the striping on
A
there?
friend of ours called Tommy Morgenthaler, he started striping in high school, and he striped all our other cars. He striped a lot of Model A's and classic cars for people in San Antonio, and motorcycles, and he striped some other stuff for me, and he always liked to put a little profanity on there somewhere.
Yeah, we were at a car show, pulled up in the pickup, and I had known Tommy's. He's like famous around here for like being the man when it comes to pinstriping.
Right.
So Tommy comes over and he goes, oh, that's John's old pickup. I'm like, yeah, it's John's old pickup. He goes, I pinstriped that. I go, really? You pinstriped that? I didn't know that because you and I hadn't talked about that. And he goes, you ever looked under the fender? And I'm like, no, what's under there? He's like, go look under the fender. And I can't say it in front of Dean, but
Right.
there's some profanity under the fender, which is his trademark. So I like laughed forever. Showed my dad, and I told my dad, I'm like, Dad, did you know that it says this under the fender? And he's like, yeah. He goes, I knew it. He goes, I wasn't going to show you. You were like 12.
Yeah, it's time. It's time that you know. Yeah, no.
But,
Tommy was a perfectionist. We like to go and watch him when he was striping the cars. He'd put a line on, it looked perfect, and I don't like it, and he'd wipe it off, and he'd keep doing it
All
until it was
freehand.
perfect. Yeah. And first he started, he had to have a beard to steady his hand, I guess. But as far as I know, he's still around. But
he's around. His eyesight.
Yeah, he lost his eyesight.
Is not what it used to be.
In fact, I had an antique motorcycle that was the last vehicle he striped.
When you see them drive it, because since you were the previous owner and the driver, you only see yourself inside, right, from your point of view. When you see them, go around that moonshine show or just on the street, does that bring back does it bring back your kind of youth a little bit, or do you feel it as more of a handover thing?
Yeah, I remember we drove that Model 8 pretty hard. It was a lot of fun on dirt roads. We'd go out in the construction sites and slide around the corners in it.
That thing is so much fun to slide around corners.
Luckily, we never rolled it over, but got close a couple of times.
Yeah. Fortunately, it slides before it rolls.
All right.
What's the farthest you've ever personally taken it?
Well, to Lubbock and back. Yeah, when we went to Galveston, me and a bunch of friends went. We just threw a mattress in the back, and a couple of people lay down in the back, and a couple of people in the front.
Yeah.
And we weren't afraid to drive the old cars back then.
Yeah, that's always one of my biggest things. I drove that 39 Ford from the state of Washington to Texas, and the guy's like, oh, you can't do that. And I was on the phone. I was like, does it have a motor still in it? Yeah. Does it tires on it? Yeah. Transmission in it? Of course, do the power track. I started naming off everything that helps everyone take out. I can put gas in it, right? Yeah. I think it's gonna drive. You know what I mean? Kind of being a little smart aleck, but it just like Robert Castle's just come on. Just come on, that's all. Yeah. Just come on, have fun. Don't rush.
Actually, I did break down one time, and when we went to Galveston and had a knock, so it sounded like a timing gear. So we were on the Seawall Boulevard, and we pulled the cover off, and the timing gear was coming apart. So I called a friend of mine, Mike Croft, in Houston, and he came down and brought me another timing gear. We fixed it right there on the seawall.
Yeah.
They were such simple cars, you could fix them anywhere.
Yeah. So you never had to do anything where you broke down, you had to do like almost like MacGyver, we call it, where you have to like take a piece of clothing and tie it to the, stop a leak, or you never had to do anything like that? Just mostly
No,
just
that's the only time it ever broke down. One time my brother was driving another Model A, and ignition switch went out, so he cut a piece of wire off the fence and hot wired it and drove it home. So there were, we were both in the cars and knew how to make them go.
If there's a will, there's a way. I always liked that.
You helped me fix it one day when we were driving back from the moonshine run.
Oh yeah. Huh. What?
Yeah, it kept dying. And
was there something with gasoline involved?
Yeah.
Was it pouring or?
Yeah. So I kept messing with the carburetor because the fuel bowl was completely full, but yeah, it turned out it was the
that line, right? Didn't we clean it out like that and go blow in it or something?
We pulled the little screen filter out of the tank, blew the line out, and I mean, knock on wood, that's the last time we've had to work on it.
That is right. I just remember being on the side of the road, and luckily we're in Texas because everybody stopped by, which is nice. But then you go like, I think every vehicle has stopped by.
Yeah, and that gets You're right. It's good and it's bad because like the first guy stops and you're like oh man, thanks so much for stopping. And then like the 30th one stops, is like, no, I've got it, I'm okay.
Yeah. Well, back in the old days, even back in the 60s, everybody was expected to know how to work in their car a little bit.
Yeah.
Because we didn't have cell phones for somebody to come pick you up, so.
Yeah, you better leave that.
Most people would figure out how to get their car going.
Yeah, you better leave home with some knowledge.
And cars actually came with tools back then,
Yeah, I have to admit, we're a little more careful with this truck than you are. Because I know I've talked to you a couple of times about, you're like, oh, just take it 80, 85 on the highway, it's no problem. And like, scares me to death. I'm going to tear that motor up, It's like,
got to check the bearings every once in a while.
Yeah, that's exactly what he always tells me, is just check the bearings. But again, it's not my truck. I don't want to mess his truck up.
Right.
That's true. Yeah. I think that's probably one of my favorite. Besides the photo of you and your brother, and I think that's my second favorite part. Just like you're like, I don't think I even need to be here right now.
It's very little to do with me.
Yeah, but if you were just
my
of course,
garage.
yeah, just use the garage. And, if you weren't part of this interview on purpose, you'd be all loud in the house and it ruin Dean's interview. This is my time.
I have the shower running and make sure to get the dogs.
Play the drums.
Yeah, we go to a lot of, take the truck to a lot of car shows, and people always come over to me and they're like, can you tell me about your truck? I'm like, it's not my truck. They're like, oh, whose is it? This is my son's. So like, and he's normally standing next to me. It's like, oh, where's your son? I was like, this is him. So they're like, oh, can you tell me about the truck? Yeah, they're always like, can you tell me, asking me again, can you tell me about the truck? Yeah, I don't need to. He can tell you about it.
It's a reverse because you're like, oh, it's my dad's. Oh, it's my son's. And then they see the age, you're like, really?
We did get pulled over. Actually, this was even before it was Dean's. Remember, I was driving the truck around. This police officer pulls me over. And I'm like, man, I wonder what I did wrong.
You're like, what's the speeding enough?
I was like, what did I do, officer? And he goes, nothing. I just wanted to see your truck. That's really cool. So we talked for about 20 minutes, and he left. So.
Did you get to tell him too? Like, this is my son's truck. I'm just using it.
It was my dad's.
At the time?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I used to get to borrow it every once in a while when it was dad's, and now I get to borrow it now that it's Dean's.
So he was messaging his friend Sean Young and asked, hey, could we feature the truck at the Lone Star Roundup? And he's like, yeah, sure.
He said that's the kind of car they want. He said
that's the kind of car they want. So we entered in on the website. You have to write a story about your car and like the make, the model, and everything, and you have to accept it to be a feature car. So we did all that. We got accepted, and we went to the Roundup. It was probably one of the best experiences I've had with the truck because I got to talk to people about it who wanted to know about it. We got a sign made for it that told you like a little bit of history and like how the engine and the overhead valve conversion and all that. So I got to talk to a lot of people about that. We got to talk to Pierre DeLuca, who does the Motor Nation, about it. We got to do a bunch of cool stuff, and it's really cool because I want more people to know about it. Because I just love the story, so I love it.
And I think too, like as we spoke about many times, you're probably the youngest person to have a featured car, right?
Yeah.
I don't think anybody else would be younger than you to have that. And I think it'd be cool too if you think about in a decade, if you have another hot rod, if it's the 33 or there, and you also have that there too. It's almost like always gonna be with you. You know what I mean? And have that featured, have another car featured, and maybe another car that you build in the future have it featured at the Roundup, and always have that roadster pickup there at least to attend. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's almost like the go-to. Like become a usual at that show. Did you get to go when it got featured at the Roundup?
I did. Yeah, well, I was only around the car a little while because I was looking at all the other cars, but people came up and they were really interested in it. Mostly older people, but some younger people, younger 30s and 40s. Year olds liked it too.
Was there any of the photos there, or just that board, just the show board?
Exactly
it was
what
just
they
the board.
had.
Yeah, just had the board there.
Yeah. This is the first time they've seen all those photos except for that.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
And
We've
my
only
brother
seen that
had
one photo
them.
you were talking about, the only one we'd ever seen.
Until today, and then nice. That just amplifies the whole story when you have the reflective, like you look at that image and going kind of, you feel like you kind of jump into like a little time machine. I wonder how warm it was today. What was the weather like in this photo? Or like, what street is that? I wonder what's down the street. I want, then you start thinking of, I want to drive it in that town at that time, but of course you're going to be the only one that's going to ever have those experiences, but at least we can continue it on our own self in this time.